Yeah, because the present right now is, yeah, there's just a lot of stuff happening right now at this current time. And it's definitely has to do with everything going on that has been hidden.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like things have been escalating. I felt like 6 months ago, there's like this little window. Like when I went public in June, there's like this little window I found over the summer where it was actually really easy to talk about this stuff for a little while.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what I mean? Like, it's like we were making all these inroads in terms of disclosure, and I felt like we had like this momentum. And I just feel like since the new year, we lost that momentum, and now it's like a lot more interference, like a lot more overt interference, and it's like, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No,
for sure.
I always feel it too. Definitely with Ileana last time, I got interfered with big time, trying to connect with her. And it's clear that I know exactly why it is they don't want us to do this. Is because in the whole there's a map that the QAnon map that just came out, and that's the most important piece of documentation that has been released that I see, because it's just everything out there. And there's certain aspects you can go to. It's basically the decompartmentalization of everything that's been compartmentalized. And basically where we're involved in the unacknowledged special access programs, which has to do with Maya Labs and everything with UFOs and all that. That sector of it all, is a very important sector to keep quiet at any cost. Because the revealing of it, of what we've been involved in with our involvement with the unacknowledged special access programs, it's got to stay quiet for their system and way to continue on, and that's without the technology being released to us, and what the life that they're living, that they're holding back from us. So they got to keep it secret, because if people know about it, that's how the secret gets out.
Right.
Yep. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Ileana.
totally. It's like January 3rd, I wasn't asleep yet at 3. I was on my phone texting something. I did a remote viewing session on somebody important, because I got I don't know why, for some reason, I just got on my computer. I just had a feeling. I went into the Secret Space Program group, because I'm one of the admins. I'm like, and I see this call for help from one of our members to check on another member. And so I'm like, this is not appropriate. This has to come off. We're not going to voice out like, okay, check on this person so 3,000 viewers, subscribers see this, because it's private. We don't know what's going on with the person. They might have, just taking a break or something from whatever. That's why they're not showing up in the group right now. So I just took it down, and I explained why to the other person who was concerned for the other person. And that person is an SSP experiencer. So I just did a remote viewing session on them, and suddenly I was sitting in the bathroom texting to somebody the results of that remote viewing session, and suddenly I see in the window 2 craft appear right in front of my eyes, pop in like simultaneously. Whoosh. They're white, blue, TR3B. I assume it's a TR3B. It might have been something else. And then when I walk closer to the window, I'm holding my phone in my hand still, and it flashes me. One of the ships flashes in my eyes, what I can describe only as a laser beam. And I'm like this with my eyes closed, and I guess I took a picture with my phone of the laser beam. I couldn't see anything in my left eye and could barely see anything in my right eye. And I guess I'm like, and I hit click. I accidentally took a photo of the laser beam hitting me. in my eyes. And then, yeah, I look at my phone like, holy, I took a picture of this. I didn't think there was anything. Yeah.
I think that's a serious breach of security, obviously, because I mean, as if you start, you know, obviously getting into using your abilities and doing that, it depends on what escalation of force you will receive. I think that probably has something to do with that.
Yeah, and what I saw in that remote viewing was horrible. Some white hospital room with a lot of lights. The person being checked over. I saw a car accident. The person was trapped. They were cold, and they had leg injuries. That's what I saw in the remote viewing. Something to do. It seemed really weird to me. And I got a text saying that person that I was remote viewing is fine. Nothing happened to them. So why would I get attacked if that person is fine? So like, why would the craft, suddenly two craft appear and attack me, yet I got a response back that the person who I was remote viewing was fine, even though I was seeing these horrid things. And I actually contacted you, KJ, about that person.
Yeah, and I saw it too. Yep.
Oh, like, what did you see?
Well, when you explained it to me, I had looked into you didn't tell me really anything about what you just said until after. But you told me that somebody was in trouble and what do I see? And I saw, if I recall, that this person was in a lot of pain and they were being attacked. They had a lot of negative connections to them. Either something is ordered to do that, or it was like they were putting beings on him, because that happens too. They can have artificial sentience and things, and he had a lot. Like, and I had tracked that like 3 days before he hadn't had them, and then now he did. So I had seen a huge influx of infiltration on him, and that he needed help. So I tried to help him a little bit. But that doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It just, like, I'm checking right now. It might be a future event that we could help out with. So yeah.
Yeah, and you had mentioned that there was a source connection to Venus about this person.
Yeah. I've been getting a lot of Venus connections lately, and I've been trying to figure out why. And I haven't actually, I didn't know it was going to come up, so the Venus things, but yeah, I'm still trying to track a few things that, like, personal attacks that I've been getting that are tracked back to Venus too, and it's been coming up a lot lately. So I don't know if anybody else has picked up on that, but I haven't really interviewed it.
In terms of Venus, I don't know if this is relevant or not, but I remember in Solar Warden, there's like a no-fly zone around Venus because there was already a presence there that was fully capable of protecting their own airspace, and so that was like a no-fly zone. A lot different than Mars, where like you can fly in and out of Mars, you can fly around Mars, and Venus had this grid around it on a map, and it was like that's a no-fly zone because there's already a presence there. So I don't know if that's relevant, but that's just what I remember about Venus.
Yeah, I know they have positive and negative beings inhabiting the planet, but I don't know much else. I'm still interviewing that.
Yeah, I remote viewed Venus half a year ago, and there's a lot of domed cities on there with electrical fields around them on the surface, and they had like a lot of people living in those metropolitan cities, and there was some kind of a catastrophe that happened on the surface, just like on Mars, and they all went underground, so they're still there.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are positive, some of them not so positive. So that's what I remote viewed. And the cities are still intact. The shielding protected the cities. So that's interesting of what I saw there. And it's just like what KJ said, what I remote viewed and what I told her, that could be a future event. Something might happen to the person, or it did happen, but we weren't told exactly what it was for the person's safety and protection. and we're not mentioning the person's name because it's remote viewing, it's sensing, we can't really speculate. You know, like something obviously happened, because otherwise why would I be attacked? Why would that person have entities around them or whatnot? So something's going on, but I was told by a female voice telepathically on one of the drop ships that hit me with the beam that they would permanently abduct me and remove me off planet if I continued looking into that person that I was remote viewing.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a huge example of like this increase in interference, and I do want to get something out there just to backtrack for a second. This has to do with Anthony. The night after we did that first roundtable in October, so this would have been, I think we did it on October 7th, so this would have been on the 8th. I had this recall where this black SUV pulls up, and it's that Lincoln Clay guy, exactly like Anthony, exactly the way you described this guy. He pulls up, he's driving. There's a Hispanic guy in the front seat and a Hispanic guy in the back seat. The back door opens, they say get in. And so I get in, and now Lincoln Clay, he's driving, and he's just looking at me in the rear view mirror. So I'm sitting in the back seat, and then the guy in the front seat says, give him the venom, it'll help him remember. So then the guy in the back seat puts my head down like that, and they inject me in the back of the neck, and then it just went black. Okay. Now what's interesting is that's like reverse speech or something, because the venom did not help me remember. I couldn't remember any more recalls for about 2 months, and I'm still having trouble recalling. In terms of my timeline, I've only had 2 recalls since then, and that's compared to like having 1 a week when we first started talking. So since October, I've had only 2 recalls in that time. What do you think about that, Anthony?
My intuition just tells me that I think they're trying to slow down the process, you know, because because with what we're involved in, we are, since it is involved with some secret time travel stuff, and obviously we're remembering all these memories, they're trying to slow the process down and do whatever it takes. And that's what I get from that.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
If that makes sense, because I just know with all the metaphysical abilities we have and all the practices we have, and the more we get access to remembering and getting our memories back, that I guess that kind of affects the timeline.
Absolutely.
And we actually do want to affect the timeline in our favor. So we do want to remember these things, that are happening to us. And I'm having a lot of recalls, every night. So I am getting a lot of my recalls back and having memories with all you guys in it. Every single one of you, like you, KJ, I had the one with you in the cabin, and Ileana, I talked to you about the ones that you had, and with Kevin, I had 2 more with you. One we were on a ship, and then one we were on a deck. And that was, those were just different recalls, and obviously of us being involved with what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think you're right. They're trying to slow things down, because I did have that on December 5th. So yeah, basically 2 months later, I finally had another recall, and that was the one where we were tracking the submarine. We were on the TR3, and we were remote viewing a submarine. And I didn't know what was on the submarine. I don't even remember what the mission was. I just had this recall of us remote viewing this submarine, and like looking down, but looking through the ship, remote viewing, and it was just moving across the surface. I hadn't dove down yet, and then when I was listening to that 12-hour mega show with the Reality Brief guys, Anthony, you were saying that was they were transporting HARP technology on the sub.
Yeah, actually I was, and they can obviously do a lot of stuff from submarines, and one of the things I do know that the cabal was involved in was in the Clinton Foundation was involved in giving orders to submarines to use HARP weaponry on subs to steer hurricanes to create the destruction there, for them to bring in the profit, that they were bringing in from the Haiti disasters. And I found that out from a very reliable source. And just there's a lot of things they can do from subs. And when you said that that memory, I was just like, that reminded me of that piece of information. And then today, I actually just found out today that the cabal is just getting like hands down like at their last limit here. And I mean, there was that scare today of the Hawaiian
I heard about that.
missile. Yeah, but here's like the actual real thing though, is that was real, and that there was actually a nuclear strike that was actually going to happen, but that was thwarted. And that could be because of these missions where you're using this technology to track submarines down. You know what I'm saying? To stop these things from happening that no one knows about. No one knows that any of this is going on right now. That there was almost a nuclear attack in Hawaii. And there's a lot of levels of information, that go with that.
Yeah, and you know what? This is not a coincidence. Last night I was watching a show called Blind Spot, where the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA, I think, are working together as a team. They have a representative from each group, right, working together. And they were tracking missing missiles. And one exploded in an uninhabited island because they weren't able to get it in time to abort it. The other one was going to explode over New York, but they stopped it within the last 3-second count. And what they said was that it's easy to actually lose missiles because they're not properly, the security and the storage of the missiles is not that high priority end in terms of budget being given to that stuff. So that show was interesting, and that was like, I was watching at 12 p.m. at night. I was watching, and then I heard about the Hawaii thing today. I'm like, oh, no kidding. They must have either, somebody hijacked this missile and stole it, or somebody activated one and went rogue off course or something, because, again, it was messed with. And in last night's episode of Blind Spot, that's what they actually revealed, what can happen. So I'm like, oh, that's not surprising. And now this today in Hawaii, I'm like, oh boy, glad somebody got that missile in check and it didn't nuke Hawaii.
Well, yeah, like there's more information because the cabal is trying to start a war right now. Obviously, by doing that, and just to stop Nasara law, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, which is, I mean, that is really actually being implemented. And it was actually a act that was, they had, I mean, they had Bill Clinton sign it. Actually, Delta Force and the Navy SEALs in March 9th, 2000, they actually stormed the White House and had Bill Clinton sign the National Economic and Security Reformation Act. And he signed that. But then since he signed that, though, the next plan of the cabal, which Bill Clinton was involved in, which is connected with the Bushes and all of the corruption, they did not, since he signed that, they then created a plan for that not to be enacted, which then led to 9/11. And I connected it together. Yeah, I connected it together. And Nasara is the reason why for 9/11, and Nasara is the reason why this last nuclear strike on Hawaii was happening, because there really is about to be a global economic reset, and it's really in the process of happening.
Can I say a point to add to today? I had recently come across a copy of the WebBot report, the forecast from 2018 to 2020 or 22. And I haven't reviewed it all, but I guess one of the predictions that something was going to happen today on the 13th, but it doesn't really say what. It just says something will happen.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, I got to read the rest of it and see. I haven't had time, but I just wanted to add to that because some people do or don't follow the webbot, but it's worth taking a look at if you can get access to it, you know.
Yeah. Something interesting. Yeah. It happened.
And today, like when we didn't really introduce who's here today. So it's KJ Scoops, Ileana the Star Traveler, Anthony Zender, and Kevin Trimmel. So we didn't do that. But like when we were trying to start this meeting, we couldn't get Anthony on a peer in at all. No voice, no image, no nothing. We tried Skype, same, no video. Here, again, we can't get him on video. Last time, I was able to get him on video. We had sound trouble, but at least we could see him. So somebody's really interfering with Anthony tonight. Kevin also got weird messages. I got threats, 5 emails, and weird article. And KJ has been attacked as well. So targeting is going on right now in full force against targeted individuals.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree with Anthony that they're trying to slow things down. Things are happening way too fast in like May, June, July, mid-year there. I just felt like a bunch of people were going public and they were able to speak, to an extent. Of course, there's always going to be some level of interference, but I felt like there's this it was like a calm before the storm,
Yes.
And I just felt like in the summer there was all this momentum for disclosure, and then now it's been very much blocked and slowed down. And one thing I've noticed is, with it going mainstream, I mentioned this in the group, was that when it goes mainstream and you have these TV anchors that are talking that narcissistic tone, and they're actually not interested in the subject at all, the giggle factor is still very much at play. So you might have like the Pentagon official guy saying like, yeah, we really do research UFOs. We spent, X million dollars. I think he said like 20 million or something for that research project. But at the same time, the person interviewing him is not really taking it seriously. So if it's not presented in a serious way, I've noticed that it is going mainstream on the news, but it is still, it's like tinfoil hat giggle factor. Meanwhile, major disclosure is happening in the alternative media, but of course we never make it on the news, and we're being like actually blocked, from really doing this quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And I just watched that movie yesterday, The Beyond. That was incredible. And again, it was like similar to the movie Contact that also came out last year. And they're in both movies, they have these this black energy appearing. In this movie, it's spheres. In the other movie, it was like octopus-like, black ether appearing, and those were the aliens. But in this movie, The Beyond, the difference is they actually talked about cybernetics and cyborgs. They actually extracted a human brain from a subject, from the cosmologist, the woman in the space. They extracted her brain. They put it into a human body. So it sort of had a human face, but the rest of it was the cybernetic body. And they sent her out in a shuttle into this singularity that had opened up into this wormhole corridor. And she went to the other side and saw the second Earth planet that's like Earth. And then she came back with that data and she showed it to the space agency. It was no longer NASA. It was just called the Space Agency. Although they still had the ISS up above Earth. So this was like, the movie was set in 2019. So they have these ether-like aliens appear with black spheres, like energy spheres, to save Earth through the singularity, through the void. And then they created a second Earth. Once they saved Earth, they created a second Earth to give humans a chance to expand, to go to another planet. And they had these humans 2.0 go to the second Earth, the cyborg, this human/cyborg. So they created more of them, and they sent them to second Earth. So this was like, that's like what Dolores Cannon talks about. Right. 2 Earths, right? The old Earth and the new Earth. So this movie really describes that aspect in the cyborgs. What we talk about in the secret space program, the ICC, interplanetary corporate conglomerate, taking humans, abducting humans, and making like augmenting them with cybernetic parts, so they're part human, part cyborg, and they're creating transhumanism on the Mars basis, on the ICC basis. I remember seeing that. They actually stuck me as a lab tech doing that, checking body parts to make sure they're viable to join with the cybernetics, to fuse that together. Just checking, you know, like bones to make sure different body tissues and stuff. So I remember doing that. That's quality control of body parts. So, and when I watched this movie, I'm like, this is so familiar. So they're disclosing this stuff that's been done. Supposedly it's still the military industrial complex volunteered the 2.0 body to fuse the human brain with in the movie. It wasn't the space agency who had it, so the military industrial complex volunteered the tech. So it was quite interesting. I was like, that's everything that's already been done on Mars.
Yeah, that sounds quite familiar. You know, I did watch that that preview, and I saw how they were showing how they took her brain and were fusing it into a cyborg, and I was just like, wow, this is putting it right out there. So you definitely explained well. I mean what the tech is going on behind these you know, corporations that are out there, you know, abducting people and then, you know, using them in operations where they're involved in just getting blown up, eaten, whatever, you know, you want to think about. It's happened to people like for me. Obviously, I've been in my secret space program, you know, in my SSP experience, I've obviously been involved in a lot of combat. So I have a lot of those those memories, and I've seen people get eaten, and I've seen people you know, die in front of my face, and I've died, you know. So it's just, and then obviously when you die, you experience that in your consciousness, because your consciousness is getting, you know, you know, put through a clone, and then you it's just like the Edge of Tomorrow. You just you go through, you get sent into battle, you get killed, and then you wake up, and then it happens again, and that's the experience of a you know, of a person that's involved in these programs, and then you try to wrap your head around it and understand what's going on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find the only problem with the disclosure in movies is it's, you know, if you've experienced that stuff, then that's like a confirmation for you. But for the average person, the second they see it in a movie, then it's not real. It's make believe. Right. And I think that's the power of Hollywood, is it's actually working against disclosure.
I agree. I agree. That's the key. That's the key. They're making an illusion out of reality.
Yeah, but at the same time, Hollywood has permission to release all this information. So we don't get one story. We get every possible timeline story or possible future timeline in every kind of movie, because, you know, you've got every kind of outcome. So it's not only possibly not believable but to the average person, but it's also confusing. Because when they start waking up, they're like, well, it kind of reminds me of this movie, but that movie's really negative, and the movies twist everything. So it's total programming, you know?
Yeah. And also like time travel, Edge of Tomorrow, I think there's time travel involved, because the guy is like re-experiencing the events, you know, until he can make some drastic changes. He's going to experiencing the same thing over and over again, experience it over and over again until it's done right. Then the same day stops, and once the war is over and the hero has saved the day, and he's wearing this huge suit created by the Army. So it's like, and then Anthony remembers wearing a white combat suit, combat armor that the ICC created. And I posted a picture as a cover.
With others as well. You know,
Yeah,
I was with others. I don't remember, you know, everybody else, but I was definitely with others too. So.
Well, I remember some guy in the cybernetic lab being outfitted by biochemically for the suit. So they're checking your biochemicals, your biochemistry, to make sure you're compatible to the suit, because this is cybernetics. Once you put it on, it's specifically programmed genetically only for you, so nobody else can wear it, hijack the suit and put it on. It's programmed for your biologicals, your body, and nobody else's. And I remember this programming being done for the suit and the person wearing it. And it's in one of my presentations, actually. So I made a cover of that white cybernetic suit for one of Anthony's parts in the interview, and he's like, "Oh, I remember that. That's the suit."
Yep, that was it.
Hey, so do you guys, this Hawaii incident with the missile, do you think that on one timeline, on like a catastrophic, cataclysm timeline, like do you think it actually did go off and then they went back and then made sure that it didn't?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I believe that there was like a timeline incursion happened, like because everybody was warned with official warnings, and then they were like, oh, it's not, it's a false alarm. So I think that they actually had real information they were releasing, and then their information just changed. And that's an incursion.
That's a perfect example of how time travel affects the present moment.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, time travel, oh, how is that affecting me now? Well, that would be a perfect example of it, though. Because that's what's going on, you know, with what's really going on. And what I understand is from all of that I'm involved in is that, you know, there's QAnon, but who's behind QAnon? And that's an ET, you know, that's extraterrestrial.
Well, everything's backed by ETs or off-planet beings. Everything's puppeted by a higher source. It doesn't stop at the government, you know?
Right, definitely.
Oh, sorry.
And you like get a thread of the truth. Okay, you know, false alarm, the missile didn't hit Hawaii, but the incursion was stopped through time travel of some sort, and they changed the timeline. I know that there was a group called the Time Corporations, and it's one of the SSP groups that's in charge of handing out time travel technology to specific groups in the SSP. Whoever is worthy of this technology and won't screw the pooch will actually use it properly to stop timeline incursions. That's who the technology is given to by these time corporations.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that. I guess the Navy Secret Space Program uses time travel heavily, and the fact that this took place out in Hawaii kind of reminds me of like a repeat of like Pearl Harbor, except this time it didn't. They averted it so that we didn't go to war over this. Like North Korea or whoever they would have blamed it on for doing like a Pearl Harbor event. They're like, no, we're not. You know what I mean? Like we're not going to go down that road again. But I think. It was interesting. I noticed in the someone posted in the group a picture of their phone. I think it was Janet from Aquarian Radio. She actually posted a picture on her phone, and it literally said, "This is not a drill. Like you have 20 minutes to find a safe location. Yeah, this is not a drill." And yet they said, "Oh yeah, it's it is."
It looks completely unprofessional from their standpoint because they probably can't explain it. They probably legitimately think it was happening and then it wasn't happening. So these are like real-time incursions, in my opinion.
Or what could have happened is somebody hijacked the missile and at the last moment they stopped it. They're like, we aborted this whole mess. One of the 3-letter agencies, woo, we stopped it, yay. But nobody's going to say that because they're like, oh, it's just a false alarm. It really never happened, you know.
I think those things have happened a lot through history, and people will never know who those people are. It's kind of what you do if you are commissioned to do that, I guess. But
Yeah.
we have less than 3 minutes left, just letting you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, I know that that was for stopping Nasara, though, you know, and that is the National Economic Security and Reformation Act that Trump is in the process of reinstilling. And with what I was saying before was how that led to the 9/11 attacks, and these are leading to all of these false flags attacks. And the 9/11 attack, you know, there's a lot of different levels of what went on there, of how they set that up, and of course they had to create the plan to carry out that act, that terrorist act, and to stop this act from being passed. And there's a whole document that I have that explains all of this, and there's times, dates, everything that, you know, I can't remember off the top of my head, but basically the Bushes, the cabal, they came up with the plan to basically do what they were going to do, the Twin Towers. And they had set up, obviously, special forces teams, sent them in there, you know, set up the, you know, for the internal implosion. And that was one obviously step of it. And so that was, and then, but there was also ET technology used in it as well, because the 747s were actually holograms. I have come to that conclusion because I've seen the technology that the secret space program has to be able to create a hologram of any vehicle it wants to. That's how they fly around in the air creating chemtrails, but it's really actually a black triangle. So basically, my theory is that, you know, that was a hologram created by a advanced TR3, and there's also evidence of like what created the explosion before it, because, you know, the hologram goes in it, but there's also evidence of a projectile going into it. So there could have been a projectile fired from a TR3, a Cabal TR3, that created a holographic image of a plane going into a tower, while at the same time internal implosion was, you know, made to go off and then disrupt the buildings. For that plan of the whole Osama bin Laden CIA, because that's the whole CIA off, is the whole Osama bin Laden thing. And basically, are you telling me that a man in a cave, you know, basically made up this whole op and made it happen? No, it didn't. That's the thing. It all does really center around Nasara law, which is the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, which is an act that was passed by Congress in March of 2000. And it was actually, Bill Clinton was forced at gunpoint by Delta Force and SEALs to sign it in the White House. and basically the plan, you know, they did 9/11 to stop that. And that was obviously, I explained that. But the whole, what is so important about Nasara is that it is a Reformation Act that was made for when the Federal Reserve collapses, and then all this stuff happens, right? Because all of this, these operations that have been involved in have been in time travel operations against the cabal, which has been against the bankers, which has been against, because the bankers are the whole reason why this world is the way it is. You know, and that goes back to them, and them gaining control of the money, and then creating the money, and then creating, you know, basically saying, hey, we're going to hold your gold here, but we'll give you this note here, you know, and then you can go exchange it for this note over here, but we have your gold in the bank, and then you can just get notes over there, but we're just going to hold your gold, but we'll just give you paper while we hold your gold. And then, you know, there's a system that they created. This is the Rothschilds. This is this goes, and this is all part of the web. This is all part of the tangled web. And obviously, I'm hitting on the banking part of it. But this is how this all got this way, because they got control of the banking system, which basically just totally destroyed the world. It's very clear, because you can go wherever you want with that. But where I was going to say was with how they created money. and the bankers found out a way on how to get control of the money by creating money and then creating credit, which is actually debt. And then that it isn't actually a system that you can get trapped in and get controlled by. And they have a lot of people underneath that right now, and that is the new world order. I mean, that's their new world order.
Right.
And that's the current system that is as we have been underneath, and that has been underneath obviously the Rothschilds and the Bilderbergs, all that group. There's just all kinds of information on that. But what I know that Trump is involved in is he's involved in bringing about the National Economic and Security Reformation Act, which is going to replace what the Federal Reserve has done, because what's been going on behind the scenes is the clearing out of the FBI, the clearing out of the CIA, the clearing out of all of the agencies. It's very clear that there's something going on, something big going on behind the scenes, right. Where there's going to be a very clear sign that there's a new world order going on. And what the best part about it is with Nasara, everybody's debt's zeroed out, because the world's been underneath a criminal enterprise anyway, because this enterprise has stretched its tentacles out to whatever countries and put them in debt, like with the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman. That the CIA had they called them jackals, and they would send them into third world countries and get the countries to be in debt to the banks and stuff, and then they would own their resources and stuff. Yeah. And it's like, they have this system, and they've been implementing this, and this is how big and tangled the web is. But there's obviously been a force against this as well. And Trump and what's going on with the alliance is the symbol of that rebellion against the bankers and the people that created the whole system.
And on that note, I just wanted to add something here. If we're going to be talking about the banksters, this is something Robert Morningsky talks about in Terror Papers, and I think it's absolutely right, and it has to do with what you just talked about, putting countries in debt. What it is back in ancient Egypt, the administrators of the empire, there were two main priesthood families, the Ra-Kam family and then the Ra-Kam-per-Ea family, which became like Ra, means like father or essence, and then Kam meant shield. So you got the Rothschild family and then the Rocca-per-Ea family, the Rockefeller family, and tracing back the etymology of the names. And those, they have been the administrators of the empire, the cabal, since like 5000 BC. And so our economic system that's been in place here, this goes back thousands of years, and the Ra-Kams and the Rocca-per-Eas, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds have been in control of, basically the known world since that time, since ancient Egypt. So what's amazing right now is if there's actually a plan in place here to actually dust off that old system and bring in a new system, that's profound. Because we've been living under the system since 5000 BC, and they've been in charge of like the gold and the Babylonian money magic system. And so Anthony, you're totally right. They can, on an individual level, they put us in debt. We're not controlled by chains; we're controlled by debt. That's actually what imprisons people. It's like a mortgage. A mortgage and has to do with mortality. Like mortgage means till death. So you're in debt till death to pay off that mortgage. And
the death pledge. That's what that's actually in the book. This book that I'm reading, President Trump and the New World Order. They call that the death pledge. That's what a mortgage is.
Yeah. So that's how they enslave people, through debt, but on an individual level. But then entire countries, like you said, like third world countries, sending in the jackals to cause basically they build all this infrastructure, like factories for third world country, like a Pepsi Cola factory or a shoe factory, and so the country signs on to all this debt, and they know they can never pay it back, and they get all this temporary infrastructure, but they can never actually pay off the loan they got in order to build factories and build So then these corporations just end up like essentially owning these countries, the same way someone who can never pay off their credit card.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's up with Bitcoin? Like, I seriously don't trust it.
No.
I don't have Bitcoin at all, or Ethereum or lithium or whatever new cryptocurrency just pops up, because there's zero regulation, there's zero oversight. What if there's an EMP tomorrow attack on the whole world? There's no more internet. Where is your money now? Same with the banks, of course. If the banks go bankrupt, your money is gone. It's worthless paper. And it's digital currency. The internet is gone. The digital currency is gone. At least with gold and silver, if you had purchased some, you still have those, whatever form you purchased your gold and your silver in, and you have it. You've put it away somewhere safe. You've stored it physically. You know where it is. It's not. Don't put it in the bank vault, because the bank is going to take it. But it's silver and gold are still trading currencies. Even the UTs use it in some parts. It's precious metals. That's never going to go away. It's been here for eons.
Right.
That was the money system before the paper came, before the electronic currency came along. So what are you guys' opinion on Bitcoin and Ethereum and lithium?
Okay, I just want to mention something quick. The final nail in the coffin in 1913, this is when the Federal Reserve came in, and basically before then, you could actually go into a bank, and yes, people were using paper money, paper currency, but you could go into any bank and get your gold out of the bank. Like imagine going into like your local bank and saying, okay, I'd like $20 worth of gold, please, or $500 worth of gold, and you hand back your paper money, and they have to pay you out in gold. When they brought in the Federal Reserve in 1913, that was the final nail in the coffin, because you can't go into a bank and get your gold. Like you can't trade in paper money for gold. I mean, you can go and buy gold, but banks don't do that anymore. Whereas up until that point, you could always go into your bank, and instead of taking paper money, you could get your gold back. So that was like, that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, that's definitely, yeah, that's a good point, Kevin. But with Bitcoin, I don't trust Bitcoin either, Ileana. I don't. I heard it was AI controlled and all this stuff, and there's just a lot of different things that I heard about it, and I don't trust that or money right now. Like you said, gold and silver and things like that, and because I know with what I've been being prepared for my whole life is for this time, you know, and there are I have a mentor, you know, his name is Ramtha, and he actually is behind President Trump. You know, Trump and Ramtha are aligned, and that's how and Ramtha's an ET. So that's the thing is that's how I know I have a very connection with knowing what Trump is doing, because since 1977, Ramtha has channeled through Jay-Z Knight, who they started a school in Tenino, Washington, where they teach telepathy, psychokinesis, you know, remote viewing. They teach all of the skills, you know, all the metaphysical skills. And, you know, CIA agents go in there and try to figure out what's going on to know what they're teaching there, obviously, because it's a extraterrestrial origin of a school. But Ramtha is the creator of it, and he is behind Trump. And basically, I know that Ramtha is in basically 35,000-year-old Lumerian warrior who ascended, and he's basically back here to help people get out of the matrix, you know, out by teaching them these metaphysical skills. Mm-hmm. And it's been very helpful to me in my life. Like he has been like my guide and my mentor, like my Yoda. Like he's been Yoda to me. And basically, actually, the other night, this was a very significant dream that I had, was because I had a dream that I was with President Trump again, and I had a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper was writing on it, but there was pieces of gum on it, and he removed the gum. He removed the gum off the paper, and I was on like a stage. And then the day after, I received the QAnon map, which is the most important document I've ever received. And basically, that was a higher source removing the gum off the paper. you know, for me to understand the whole key of the map that QAnon just put out, which is extraterrestrial sources behind that information.
So what do you guys like? Have you ever tried Bitcoin?
I have. I will be the oddball. I own some cryptocurrencies, and I kind of grew up with owning stock. My parents would buy me one share for Christmas. You know, as a child, like Apple or whatever it was, Walt Disney, Ben & Jerry's ice cream. And so I kind of grew up with like it as like a hobby, being in the stock market. So like by the time I was old enough to cash in my Ben & Jerry's stock, I got one share when I was a little kid. When I was an adult, it was like $500. So it was kind of like a fun thing. And I treated the stock market as like a hobby. I never treated it as my financial backing. So I've kind of always been around that type of thing, and I've worked in law firms, and I've said to lawyers, what do you like buy? And you know, nobody in the stock market will ever tell you what they buy, because it's a very greedy type field, and nobody will tell anybody what, even financial advisors won't tell you what to get. So Bitcoin, I don't know a lot about it. I'm no expert. I'm very new at it. But I've seen that it's not just Bitcoin. Bitcoin kind of has like that big name, like Xerox, or it has the name of the thing. And from what I understand, and I've had to like wrap my head around a lot of the concepts, because I have friends that are super like experts at it, and they are like, oh, do this, and I'm like, it's too much, right? So I just started by investing a very small amount and just forgetting about it. And I'm still not like up to speed to get into this like addictive quality, because a lot of people are getting addicted to it, and they're trading and buying like it's a video game, which it can be appealing if you're treating it as like a hobby, but people are actually getting rich off of it. And I have friends that were broke last spring, and now they own a farm because they made so much money. And these are truthers, these are good people. I think that I know what I've understand is that it's not just Bitcoin. There's lots of cryptocurrencies. Some currencies are created by good guys, bad guys. There's bankers that are involved over here, but there's also cryptocurrencies that are being invented by like 19-year-olds and like, you know, young kids that are, there are cryptocurrency groups that are banding together to kind of like, they'll all say, oh, I don't work with people that are the greedy people in Bitcoin. I'm working with the people that want to make something of it. So I think it has a multiple layers. I think that there are banks involved, and there is that factor with the banks know that they're going to go down eventually. And they're like, this is kind of moving towards cryptocurrencies. Japan's already adopted it as another currency. You can, Venezuela, you can buy food for other countries and certain programs with Bitcoin. There's lots of good going on with it, but there's all this like air of like, I don't trust it because I don't trust anything that's going on with money. And it goes back to the AI, and do you trust AI? Do you think it's bad, or do you think it's good? And like, we're at a turning point where we're going to a technology-based world. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. And we have the option and the choice to like take AI and say, what are we going to do with this? Because the way it was explained to me is, if this analogy is, Bitcoin is kind of like MySpace. MySpace was the original social platform. And then everybody was on that. And then Facebook happened. And then MySpace kind of like ended, everybody moved to Facebook. Well, this is what's happening right now, is Bitcoin is so big that it's like, I don't know the numbers, but I'm hearing there's not that much left, and they're going to cap. So what's going to happen is all these other where there's multiple cryptocurrencies, there's tons, and you can go into, I'm learning, you can go into certain cryptocurrencies and buy like 1 million shares for like not very much. You can go and buy these currencies for like 10 cents, 20 cents, $1, whatever. And I am learning this is the time to do that, because Bitcoin's about to cap. So what's going to happen is everything's going to roll out into those, and they're going to skyrocket. And this is all happening before it hits the mainstream. So it's not really worldwide yet. It's very small, although Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies is using like 3% of the world's electricity. So it's a big deal, because 3% might not be big, but it's something. And what's happening, I don't see it as a permanent solution, but I see multiple currencies as multiple insurance policies. So when this one goes down, people will still have money. They can use it for good things. And it's making poor people rich really fast. And the people, I know people that have invested and made a ton of money, and they've kind of convinced me, because, you know, we're all trying to survive, and I work a 40-hour-a-week job just like everybody else. So there's a lot of things about it that are appealing. But I don't want to play into the curse of, you know, the money gods, the ball of money curse, you know. So I think that we have an option to make it go good or bad. And I think that if you're going to do it, just make sure that you buy with intention and buy with good intention. I think it's going to happen regardless. So I'm not completely against it because I own some. I'm interested to see what happens. But my intentions are just more financial freedom personally, so that I can do other things to help other people. So I don't know what other people's intentions are. I think it's all about intentions, because I think that we're creating the future now. We decide what's happening. And I think cryptocurrencies isn't horrible, but it depends on how you look at it. It depends on who you're talking to. If you talk to somebody that's been really helped by it, it's convincing to do it. So, you know, we'll see.
What I know about it, it's like the stock market. If you buy into the good currency, you get a great return out of it. If you buy into the bad currency, it could just crash, and before you don't get to pull out your money because it's too late. It's crashed and you lost the value of that money.
Part of that is a lot of people are being involved in it by the minute. A lot of these people that are doing it have quit their jobs, and they're doing it full time, and they're watching it every day. And they're spreading it amongst multiple areas. So if one goes down, it doesn't matter, because they have all these other investments.
Yeah, so it's still like Russian roulette. You're really playing. It's like playing the stock market and stock bonds. One day you're ahead and you're making quite a bit. The next day it crashes and falls, and you lost it because you didn't invest in the right one. You have to kind of know the ebb and the flow, when to pull it out, when to put it in a different cryptocurrency.
Right.
Play around with it. Like if you put in a little bit, you're not really worried about you're going to lose all your money. You're going to lose all of the crypto that you invested in it. For me, I don't play the stock market. I just, I believe in money. You work for it, you save it. If you invested it, great. You made the investment. If you lost it, you lost it.
Right.
It's on you. So it's like another stock market. Except it's like less regulated.
Well, that's how I treated the stock market too. It would be one share, and I'd forget about it. And I didn't. It was little gifts as a kid. People used to give stock savings bonds to kids when they were kids. My family, they gave shares of stock, and it was great when I was in my 20s when I needed money. But it's if you treat it like it's just an extra thing that is just nice to have, you could be pleasantly surprised that you would make a lot of money. I just invest a little bit and forget about it, and that's what I still work a day job. I haven't quit my job.
Yeah, I don't think any of us have quit our day jobs, because it's like you have to live on something, and somehow there's this free energy group called Physique. I just did a show with them recently, and Mark Berger, I think the guy is, he's like, well, I'm going to give 500 of a cryptocurrency to somebody if they're changing the world somehow. They're doing something special to help the world, disclosure, whatever. So I applied for it, and it's $500 cryptocurrency. I sent in my resume, what I do, why I do it. So we'll see. What I want to do is build prototypes, healing studios, prototypes. And I want to build one in my backyard when I get permanent housing, because we're going to buy a bit bigger land. So I want to build a prototype healing studio. and I need the funds for it. For that, that's what I'd use the cryptocurrency to do it.
Yeah.
Grow it out a little of the crypto and then use the crypto for that. Cash it in and build that studio, or a prototype greenhouse that's specialized for growing your own food in your own backyard.
Yep.
So it's like this guy's trying to do airdrops of cryptocurrency to people whose goals are worthy of, building a new style of community.
I was asked to do that too, Ileana. Like Crystal Go, she asked me to be on her show as well and talk, and she gave me that opportunity as well. So I'm going to be signing up for that. But
it's great. It's great.
She wants me to talk about the med beds and stuff like that and free energy, because it's like if the secret space programs got them and they are able to heal people, it's obvious that we need to get those. And I really do believe that Trump is also involved in bringing that in too, because obviously once we get all the patents back from the cabal, which they're holding back all of the patents, they're just holding it all back. I mean, once they're totally eradicated, once the swamp is drained, once all of the pedophiles and all of the, just freaking corrupt people that have, been involved with this organization are gone, that there is going to be, release of these things.
Absolutely.
And this is going to be this year. I've had dreams of, my broken finger being healed. How is that possible? That would be possible with a med bed, and I mean, this gives me much hope that this is on the way, because it's just like that would be the first thing into a civilization coming up from the ashes, would be people being healed. And
sure.
And have you signed up for the foundation, like the finders, for if you have an idea for what you want to do to help out the world? They're thinking of using cryptocurrency, a new form of cryptocurrency that Martin Berger is involved with, to actually drop their currency so people can achieve what they want to try out. For me, it would be the prototype of the healing studio, like 400, 500 square feet, to try to build that in my backyard successfully, having people come over for free to get healed with the crystals that I have, or Reiki energy, like do it on a volunteering basis. Like, I'm not going to charge for it. I get the backing to build the studio to do it in. I guess I can't do it out of my house. I live with family, but I do it in my backyard, build a studio. I think that's a worthwhile cause to help out people, to heal people.
See, these are all the good reasons why people can get into Bitcoin. It's not for the greedy reasons, And also, I just want to point out, since you mentioned it, that I mentioned the WebBot earlier. One of the things in the WebBot too was talking about the explosion of cryptocurrencies this year, and how there was a couple months that were mentioned, and I can get back to you on those. I want to say it was a month in the spring and a month in the fall where certain cryptocurrencies are going to skyrocket, and it's going to change the lives of a lot of people. So these are predictions by the WebBot. So I think, and also I've seen a lot of truthers following like the QAnon and stuff. There are people doing really amazing work, compiling information. A lot of those people are also putting their Bitcoin addresses in their YouTube descriptions as donations for their websites now, versus the old PayPal, because PayPal is under fire too for corruption, but that's a whole nother story. So Bitcoin, it's moving that way, and if it's not Bitcoin, it's going to be another coin, I think that it's not, I believe in multiple avenues of income. If you can have more than one, more than five, whether it be little, small, whatever it is you do, that's great. You always are moving, you're always active, you're always doing something to survive. And, I'm fine with cryptocurrency. I know their currency is a curse, but we need currency to live here. And
I'm not against it. It's just I don't have the capital to play with it for now, so I'm not.
You can just donate like $10 a week and forget about it, and it will build. So
So Kevin, yeah, like, so that memory recall that you told me about, where you saw me in the library on the screen.
Yeah.
I think that was a mission, where that was, had to obviously do with the briefing for what we were doing in tracking those submarines. You know, that could have been a connection there. You know, and I just wanted to ask you about what was your recall of that, like.
Yeah. So the sequence of events is it actually starts out in the library, and yeah, you're on like a video call, and there's a couple people seated around a conference table, and I can't hear what we're talking about. It's like the audio is muted, but I can see, you know, like you talking and them talking, and so yeah, it was probably some kind of briefing, because then the recall just skips ahead to being on the TR3 and like looking down and seeing the submarine, and we were cloaked, and so the submarine was not aware that we had, you know, them under observance, and we were tracking them. They were totally unaware.
Maybe we were involved with the time traveling involved with stopping that missile. You know what I'm saying? That could be a possibility, because that could have been us in now. Does that make sense? You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
because if you are tracking a submarine and nukes are getting launched from submarines by the Cabal as a last attempt, you know, that would make sense. That could be a possibility that we could have been taken then and then brought to now to thwart an attack, and then return back then, and then lived out the rest of you know, our linear timeline, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I didn't even think of that, but you're right. I guess missiles are typically fired from submarines. Yeah, it's interesting how you're able to fill in the blanks for me, because I had that recall on December 5th. What's interesting about it is the audio is muted. So it was a silent dream, like a silent film. You know what I mean? And I was just, so that's why I didn't know what the mission was when I woke up, because I couldn't hear what the mission was. They had blocked that out. So yeah, that's interesting. It definitely, and also too, I know the Navy secret space program has access to time travel more so than the Air Force. Apparently, the Air Force isn't like quite operating on the same level as the Navy, which I know is a big surprise for the Air Force. But the Navy seems to have access to, like what Ileana says, the Time Corporation seems to be working more so with the Navy faction than the Air Force faction.
And the ICC, Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, has Stargateway portals. So the Time Corporations love the ICC, because there's a trade-off for the ICC. The ICC gives the Time Corporations great tech, and the Time Corporations give the ICC as a kickback the time travel tech. So there's tech and there's tech involved. And speaking of tech, I have a question for KJ. KJ, what do you remember from the Earth Alliance Trump op mission for the briefing in February of last year? Yeah.
I remember being at the cockpit as the pilot. I know that my memories are very mixed and compartmentalized because they wipe my memory. So I get bits and pieces. I do recall you, and I recall seeing the console of the front of the ship, and which you had sent me a picture of something you had seen similar, and it actually jogged a lot of memories, because I recall in SSP being used when using my own abilities and or flying a ship. There's a lot of like telepathic things going on. There's a lot of what I see in my third eye as like a dashboard that is like in front of me, like holographic kind of. So a lot of things with the ship involve things that are holographic too, versus not just pushing buttons and, you know, driving a steering wheel. So yeah. I remember that, and I remember the scene of Trump being on the ship and shaking everybody's hands. That's one of the big things I remember, because I usually can always have anything that's positive, or like a positive connection between two people, I consider a heart connection on many levels. It could be small or big. So a smile, a handshake, anything that's friendly is a heart connection. So those usually always bleed through to me. And I remember the whole crew standing in a line, kind of in a room, and I remember Trump going down the line, shaking everybody's hands. And I do recall Tony Rodriguez being there. I only remember him shaking the hand. That's it. And then I recall a couple other people that you guys have never mentioned. I mentioned somebody, Michael Spindler, who I mentioned in our roundtable with Kevin and Anthony as one of the kids from the 1979 incident. I remember him there. And I do recall Kevin there also shaking hands. The shaking hands is the big thing that I remember a lot in SSP. For some reason, I get bleed overs of people shaking hands a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a line of people with black uniforms, and I remember the line was in front, and then I remember over to the side I was there with you, like kind of like broken to the side a little bit, not
Mm-hmm.
in that line, and as kind of like the pilot crew versus the crew. I don't really know how that's broken apart, but there was somebody else there too that I don't identify, but I do recall him shaking people's hands, very friendly, and I actually don't recall Anthony from my perspective, but I think I don't know if did he board the ship for that, or
He boarded he boarded one of the space jets. He actually went with the protection team.
Okay.
He didn't board with us, but Sean Bond did board with us. I
Yeah.
remember Sean Bond as well on that one.
Yeah, because we had that conversation a while back about it.
Yeah, we just kept that private.
Yeah.
Because we were.
I don't, like I said, I remember compartmentalized, like flashes of moments.
Mm-hmm.
But not like a streamline of a memory. But I do remember being there. I do remember the ship, and I remember a large room we were in to meet him, to greet him.
Yeah, and something about Paducah, Kentucky.
Yes, and that was the other thing, because he had to get onto the ship somehow. So I had tracked it to that area in the country. I actually looked on because I guess they're supposedly leave the schedule of the president public, but I don't know how public that is. So I did look at it, and I remember he was traveling at that time, but I don't remember if it was specifically Paducah, but I doubt that they would put that on the itinerary anyhow. So yeah, there's some sort of facility at that base there that allows him to get to the ship in some fashion. I don't know if it's a jump room or what, but I do see that area for that specific mission.
Yeah, I don't remember shaking his hand because I was off to the side. I was just nonchalantly watching how it was happening, but I didn't want to shake his hand. I'm like, not interested. He looks nice. He looks interesting, but I was like, kind of like standing. I felt kind of militant. I didn't want to be on this mission because I revoked my SSP associations already, the contract revocations. So I was like, darn, they still took me for this. Darn it. I didn't want to be there. I'm like, I was kind of standing there bored with this kind of like, why the F am I here? What am I doing here? They pulled me into this again. And then I'm like, no, this seems okay. We're going to leave Earth orbit. This seems kind of cool. Okay. So he was shaking hands. He was like, hi. And I was standing off to the side with this, I don't want to be here kind of militant look on me. And he didn't even pay me any attention. He's like, he was doing the meet and greet with the people that were enthusiastic to meet him. I wasn't one of those people. I think he's doing a good job as a president. I like him. I was just like, I wasn't impressed being in that, being pulled into it. I didn't want to be there. So I was like,
Yeah.
kind of like that. But it was cool. Once we boarded, it was pretty cool in the cockpit, and you were like scrambling all the communications, so you and I wouldn't hear what he was being briefed on. So but you can guess what he was being briefed on. That's
Right.
pretty self-explanatory. Earth Alliance. You got the president, and Earth Alliance, I found out they're the ones that briefed the presidents and put them in. So
Yeah.
he's backed by the Earth Alliance, so you could pretty much like I heard chatter. I heard like the pilot. I heard chatter about what they're briefing him on. So I heard that chatter. I'm like, okay, well, that's that. And we were there. And I remember Anthony in the gray-black suit, the armor suit, light armor suit. I remember the FN 4000, him having that weapon with him, partly plasma powered. So it's like a rail gun, but it has plasma components in it now with a power cell. So that was interesting. I remember, like, when you saw the images, you said you were wearing one of the gray uniforms, right?
Yeah,
KJ?
the pants and the shirt, like the body fitted one, not the skirt one.
Yeah, no, not. I hate skirts. I was wearing the pants and
Yep.
the shirt too, like the body fitted gray outfit, and I think there was a backpack or something on it in the back. Something like a little backpack for us in our gear. And Sean Bond doing something in the cargo hold. That was interesting. And you were in the cargo hold with Sean at one point as well.
I actually don't
Doing
have
something.
recall of that specific moment, but I do with the cockpit. So,
Yeah, I remember something. Yeah, we just as we were talking about the cargo hold, you were starting to break out in the sound.
Yeah. That's pretty much the gist of, like, I'm still trying to remember certain things, but that's what I do remember. And like I told you recently, I messaged you the other day that I had another recall on January 9th of being on the ship again on that night, January 9th, just a few days ago, with another type of debriefing of him, Trump. And I had vividly remembered you, similar scenario, pilot, co-pilot, and we had him on the ship, and but this time it was different. We actually went 200 years into the future. And I'm trying to figure out why, but what I'm coming up with is that we were trying to reveal something to him and his group. I think it was kind of like to see, like, my instinct is this is what the future is in 200 years if you stick to what you say you're going to do. And if you know, I don't recall showing him a negative timeline. It was actually positive. And I had a good feeling about it. And I also mentioned to you that I remember sharing a glance with you where I actually remember looking at you in the cockpit and you looking at me, and we had like a telepathic connection where we smiled and we kind of like knew what we were doing, and we knew this was good. And it was the Alliance created a new incursion. This was like an unexpected incursion that happened on January 9th. And I don't know if you know, but January 9th, there was a huge planetary alignment too, where I believe it was like Earth, Moon, Mars, Venus, Saturn, the Sun, everything was in a straight line. And that was
sorry, go ahead. I was actually watching Lara Croft and the first Lara Croft movie where the planetary alignment, or she was watching about the planetary alignment. So in the movie, that's wow. That's not a coincidence. So yeah, and I just remember Sean Bond as well, like having a connection to Sean in the SSP and having like something about that cargo hold during the first briefing was important because he remembered you in the cargo hold and him, and you guys were doing something in the cargo hold that was important. And just when we were talking about that, it your audio just flipped out. Like we can hear you. But you said you don't recall that very well. So.
I don't recall that moment very well. But I probably could if I put some energy to it and did some kinesiology. I could probably track it back too.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, and I remember having like a personal connection with Sean, more like a relationship type of connection in the SSP, and more of the alien program stuff. That when we did some aliens visitation with him, so on alien ships. So that's like, I think he's hot. He's pretty. He's a hot looking guy, and just there's something there. I feel from that Sean Bond connection.
Hey, it's natural. It's only natural. It's only natural.
I think that we have a lot of relationships in the SSP. It's kind of a topic that's not discussed much, and because people have real lives and real Earth lives, you know? But it's totally okay because you have no control. Nobody has any control. There's no control over that. It's kind of what comes natural. So it happens a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember Kevin from the SSP, the ICC training. I drowned Kevin. I drowned you, Kevin.
It's okay. I've since forgiven you. Water under the bridge and all that.
There you go. So it's like I was this like a drill sergeant who's like, jump in the water, do this, but I won't tell you why, and you have to sink or swim. That's it. So dead or alive doesn't matter to me. I want my results. I just want to test your psionics. How strong you are psionically. So that was
that's the thing is. Yeah, we in our super soldier lives we have no recollection of our lives here except for what we can remember in our memories, you know, because we're in an altar, you know, and like I've been told I'd have 1,200 different altars, and one of them, just one of them, you know, is named Andrew Royalton, and he's deeply ingrained into the CIA. You know, he's a black ops CIA agent. And, you know, I had these read off to me off of my files, but obviously I have 1,200 different altars that are accessed through for whatever mission it is that they need, which is actually, I mean, that's pretty crazy, but I know that I'm integrating these altars and I'm able to, you know, because I'm doing the spiritual work that I'm doing, I'm able to understand that some of those altars were just not me, you know, and it was someone else and doing something, but it's in my consciousness, you know. So that's how you understand altars, and how you experience altars being a part of this.
Yeah. I remember it as me. That's as full, vivid memories of me. I was not as altars. It was me doing what I did for 60 years and back. And then some way they kept me young. They kept on giving me drug serums to keep me young in one body, one mind, one entity. So over and over again, though, the same person just being rejuvenated, age regressed with the drug serums. And there's different ways of age regressing. You could do it through the medical holographic pods. You could do it through drug serums. You could do it through alien technology, the holographic chambers. You could put somebody in the regeneration tank with the green goo. So there's so many different ways to age regress you, to keep you young. It's not funny. There's also medical pods to kill you. So on portable medical Meditech units. So if you're out in the field and you're in battle mode and you've been injured, so a smaller size version of the holographic medical pod comes to pick you up, and it uses anti-grav technology. And while it's floating back to the base, it's regenerating your body. So it's quite interesting what tech they have.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, before we go too further, I wanted to go back to Anthony's thing you said about 9/11, because I wanted to add something that I don't want to forget. Anthony had talked about 9/11 and the holographic projection of the planes. I wanted to add to that too, because there's a lot of physical evidence that are not holographic that happened in Massachusetts, which is where the planes took off from. They took off from Boston. And I know of somebody, these people are contactable, I won't mention their names, but there are actual witnesses that claim, that have never been public, that claim that they were within 2 to 3, maybe 5 miles from Hanscom Air Force Base, which is in Bedford, Massachusetts, which is just west of Boston. It probably would take a good 20 minutes, 25 minutes to get from Boston to Hanscom by plane. There's reports of big American Airlines type size planes landing at Hanscom Air Force Base because, you know, if you're within 2 or 3 miles, it's right over your head. And there's reports of a couple planes landing at the same time that they would have been flying over Hanscom, headed to New York City. So there's that. And I don't know if they have a connection in Hanscom, but I know that there's a gigantic FEMA underground facility in Massachusetts, and they've advertised it on the news. It's huge and it's deep underground. And I don't know, I'm sure it connects to Hanscom, but you can do the math. If those planes were actually landed there, where are those people? You know?
That's interesting. I remember some kind of a mission or something where I had access to Vault 7. It's one facility in New York and also somewhere else in the United States. And they had information like on one of the servers about 9/11, the fact that there were remote controlled small bombs placed inside the towers, the Twin Towers, right? And that they were remotely detonated off-site, and that there's holographic technology used to show how, if a plane had hit the towers, how it would, you know, take down the towers, except it was those bombs inside in the janitorial closets and elsewhere where it's not so noticeable, that took down the Twin Towers. But the thing is, I'd never read about 9/11 or how that, you know, the conspiracy theories of how that happened. And it was before the WikiLeaks stuff came out about Vault 7. So I'm like, holy ginormous, that's huge. How do I know about that? How did I end up in Vault 7? And when 9/11 truly happened, on that day when I was sleeping, I had a dream about the warplanes from 1942, from that era, firing on the Twin Towers, that there was a war on the Twin Towers, and these 1942 warplanes were firing at it. I'm like, and back then I didn't know I was psychic. I didn't know that this was a premonition and that was actually happening, except in a different way.
Right.
So it's like the Vault 7 information, they have information about 9/11 and how it really went down. That it was, the towers were remotely taken down with bombs inside the towers.
There's a lot of evidence to support that there was bombs.
I know, like, another level too of it is there's like I, as super soldier, as a runner, I was involved in taking out those bombs. And actually I have a memory of being in the Twin Towers and actually fighting something that was trying to stop me from taking out the bombs. And that was information that I have been waiting to release, because there were there were runners involved in the World Trade Centers. There were Kruger runners there, and they were involved with saving people and extracting files, actually, from the WTC, the Building 7. There were basically like X files there, and runners were used to extract those files. Before things could happen, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the trade centers that they were trying to, to stop from happening. They actually they were taking out computers in certain parts of the building to stop just to stop everything from happening. So, but there were definitely runners involved in 9/11. So, and I have a memory of being there.
The funny part is 9/11 was a colossal fail. They took out the Twin Towers and some other buildings near them, but the plan was to take out half of New York, which they failed to do because that was stopped. The collateral was the Twin Towers and a couple of other buildings, huge buildings, but they failed in that they didn't take out half of New York. So the plan was to take out half of New York. It was something went wrong. Obviously, that attack was stopped to take out half of New York, but the collateral was the Twin Towers. That was the sacrificial lamb, so to speak. But the plan was much bigger. It was more than the plan was more than the Twin Towers. The plan was to have New York down on its feet.
Yep.
Like totally almost destroyed. So that failed, and the cabal has been trying and not succeeding in a huge false flag attack. Nothing is on a heavy scale as 9/11. Like they tried, they want, but they fail. Somebody stops them now. They can't do another 9/11.
No.
People will notice this time that something is not right.
Yeah. There's too many eyes out there watching.
Blaming it on the terrorists?
Yeah.
Blaming it on the terrorists? Not good enough, because terrorists are terrorists. This goes beyond terrorism. This goes back. What is on your what is on your home soil? Who is screwing America? Who is screwing Europe? Who's screwing Canada? Because everybody screws each other. That's the cabal.
Hey, Anthony, are you following this QAnon person?
I haven't been following as much as I should be, but I have been following enough to know what's behind what he's putting out.
It is interesting. I know that some of the stuff he said that it kind of comes true, or like Trump says similar words or terms after he or she says it. I did know some of the compilations of information people are doing that follow QAnon. I noticed they're picking up hashtags and from celebrities and companies. Now this goes back to from my memories of SB training, which is short for espionage, and certain programs where you learn espionage training, where you can see it in Hollywood right now. All the Hollywood people on Twitter and Instagram, they're all using specific hashtags. Certain celebrities are doing specific hashtags to specific people. And it's quite, because I have that in the back of my mind, this SB training, I pick up on these little things. I'm like, yep, that's something. And for example, Kentucky Fried Chicken of the UK got busted because they said some weird riddle in their Twitter, and then they said pound nuclear button, and that's it. And then this Hawaii thing happened within a week. So there's a lot of weird subliminals going on in the hashtag world with Twitter and Instagram through celebrities. And they're all communicating that way too. And I find it quite interesting personally. And I don't really know specifically who to say to follow for that, but I don't follow that specifically, but I've noticed it's been pointed out to me. Look at this. And I'm like, oh yeah, like that's something. And there's a lot of people that are doing that, doing multiple hashtags that are seemingly clues, or celebrities aren't allowed to talk. So some of them are talking and telling their truth through hashtags. And it's not just the big Hollywood ones that you see, like Me Too and all that. These are like very specific things. So there's a lot of espionage going on that way too.
Yeah, I just watched Assange Twitter and Trump Twitter a little bit, even though I don't have a Twitter account. I have no Twitter and Facebook. I'm like, I'm not on Facebook too much. I hate social media. I don't do social media at all. Like I told somebody, social media, not me. Although the interviews we do, so, but I don't count that as social media. That's just more YouTube.
Yeah. I just go
And
to
what
things
you've-
when it comes to me. I don't
Mhm.
follow. I just, I just follow what comes to me. You know?
Exactly, me too. And I
No,
like to.
thanks for that tip, KJ. Thanks for that little espionage tip there.
Yeah, I can PM you some stuff after this.
I think Jordan Sather is doing a good job putting QAnon together and Q and all of that, putting the breadcrumbs of what's going on. He puts out good news stuff, reviews what's in the news. I like him. I watch sometimes.
So do I.
Good commentary he does.
I've met him. Yeah.
Oh, good. Maybe we can talk
Yeah.
about how
Yeah,
you
actually,
met him a
actually
little
met
bit.
him. I met him at James Gilliland, and I get very good energy from him. He's a good guy. So
Yeah, he's nice. Whatever people are saying, it's stupid. He's very he's good at putting information together, and it's different than journalistic style. It's much different than that. So these like holographic medical pods, this is what I remember from the SSP. Like it has more advanced ones and more simplistic ones. This is the more simplistic one. So it has some kind of a glass shielding around it and 3 separate shields that open up like these glass shields. And it has an airtight operating shield. It has a computer-controlled robotic surgical arm. Vital sign sensors on this side, adjustable titanium base, which the pod is attached to, liquid spray anesthetic. So actually when you go in for a procedure, right, to get something fixed, like to regrow your arm, to remove cancer, it sprays you with this little liquid spray anesthetic from here. And then also it has something called comfortable limb restraints. I guess so you don't move around while the anesthetic hits you. And then you kind of go to sleep. The shield closes up and it does the surgical procedures with the lasers, and it has like laser arms as well. This is how the software looks like, and this is from Elysium, I believe. Anthony mentioned this movie last time during our interview. So this is from that movie, Elysium. This demonstrates the software of the medical pod because it's going to remove her scarring tissue. And it says 100% clear, ready to go. Trace amounts of cancer. She also has cancer, so it's going to remove the cancer and replace it with her clean genetic pattern, her clean DNA, pre-cancer. So they have her genetic record on file. These are the more simplistic medical pods. And this is the laser arms, and it looks like an MRI bed. This is the military industrial complex. MICs use these medical pods. This is the more advanced pod with smaller laser arms, so they're going to do the surgery on her. And this is like after surgery coming back with your arm fully attached. And it has your genetic profile on the software. He's looking at, hey, I have an arm again. So you see how it's a little bit wet, right?
Yeah.
He's just come out of the pod, and there's mimetic gel in some of the pods, so it helps to regenerate the limbs. So this is what it looks like, fresh out of the pod. He's freshly out of the pod with the new arm. Here's the mimetic gel, the wet stuff, like bluish white gel. So that's what kind of regenerated his arm along with the laser. And another image of the pod. And that's in Passengers movie as well. That just from last year, the movie. So with Jennifer Lawrence, this is the pod they featured, the more basic one. This is the Meditech unit, the portable unit that I was talking about. It has anti-gravity to transport you. And it's programmed to go out anywhere near the field. So you basically, it's an emergency portable one. That's the more advanced pod that the ICC has. And it has a more open concept shielding around it, so it doesn't fully encase you and close you in. And it's a little bit more advanced. And it doesn't have to restrain you. But there are restraints if you want them, just so you don't move around, but you don't have to use them. So that's what it looks like. It's more open, it's more spacious, and it has a better design quality to it. You can see they're doing the laser surgery on her. Not sure what the surgery is, but it's doing that. And these are images I found from the internet, basically. If you type in specific keyword searches, certain phrases, you'll find this stuff out on the internet. It's there, I guarantee it. So this is basically the my little presentation on medical pods. And I did this like about a year ago. Strangely, I remembered more stuff about the medical pods and being in the ICC cybernetic labs after I did my interview with Randy Kramer. So it triggered memories after I did the interview with Kramer and Brad Johnson. And this is what came out of the triggered memories, for me at least.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I think it's very important that people see the Meditech unit and see that it's there. So because if this technology is at least shown to people and they can see it, they can know of its existence, and that's going to be part of bringing this information about. So yeah, thank you for showing that.
Yeah, I did the same presentation in Physique Free Energy Group. That's exactly what I showed them. Because this, and Corey Good actually endorsed this before he knew who I was, the original video about this stuff. So it got 10,000 views on YouTube because of him. Just saying.
Where does
thank God for Corey Good.
Where does the name Meditech come from? Because there's an actual.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
You just froze when you said it.
Meditech, is that the name? Where does that come from? Because there's an actual company named Meditech in America that makes software for hospitals to track information. So I was just curious.
Well, oddly enough, this is the name that I remember from my ICC days, the Meditech unit. And when I was 13, I had read a Joanna Lindsay book. It talks about sort of like the SSP, where they've branched out to other planets. And, Earth, they're off Earth now, and they have colonies on other worlds. And they have these Meditech units on ships for emergency standby. If you've been hurt, whatever, they heal you. So the first time I heard, I've known the word Meditech unit since I was 10. I had that memory before. Then I heard it again when I read a Joanna Lindsay book. And then I forgot all about it. And then when further SSP memories resurfaced about the cybernetic labs and them building these holographic medical beds on the Mars bases, I'm like, okay, well, I remember this. And then when Randy Kramer was talking about the same tech, I'm started having flashbacks of the Meditech units. So I typed it in, and I'm like, holy, this is all on the internet. There's images of it. The holographic medical pods have been featured in Elysium. It's been featured in Prometheus on a ship. That's another movie. I think it's a Ridley Scott movie, Prometheus. They had those medical pods on there. And recently, as last year in the movie Passengers with Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. So they have them on ships. They have them on bases. They have them on space stations, these medical pods and the Meditech units. So it's interesting technology. Can heal cancer. Yeah, it could heal various neurological diseases, disorders, remove cancer, regrow limbs, body parts. And there's technology, I think you and I were chatting, that there's companies, bioscience medical companies, that are working on certain type of genetics to reverse certain types of diseases,
Right.
on the genetic scale, right? Bioscience
Absolutely,
companies.
yeah. There's companies doing this they're working towards reprogramming bacteria. So that's a huge difference because nobody else is doing that. They're just treating bacteria. It's like the prebiotic before the probiotic. So there's companies in America doing this right now. It's revolutionary. They're not huge, but they will be. And back to the Meditech, that company is based out of Massachusetts, and it is in 5 different towns. And I know this. I know people that have worked for there, so I do know the company, and I know that it's very privately owned, and they facilitate every hospital, almost every hospital on the network, I guess you would call it, in America and worldwide. So I'm wondering, my instinct is that this is what becomes of them later on in the future, because
Yeah.
they're at the cutting front of all technology in hospitals everywhere.
Yeah, and what I heard from SSP chatter, I think I was pulled back into an SSP meeting on the ICC recently, that these medical pods and these Meditech units, they'll be released first to the alternative medicine healing centers and the private companies that are doing the bacterial work and stuff. They'll be the ones to test out these.
Yeah. Coming in some interference.
Holographic medical pods before it goes mainstream to hospitals. So, and then introduce it to the hospitals.
Yeah.
That's what I heard from SSP chatter.
Yeah.
And I'm just, to me, that's like incredible. I wish the hospitals got this first, but they won't.
Yeah, I don't like to say where I work and what I do, but I do know that they're having huge conventions, I guess, annual meetings coming up this year that are all about artificial intelligence and all about how to incorporate that into the medical world. And it's happening now, and it's the one that I know of. I believe it's in March, and it's every big doctor, research facility, university around the world. They're all meeting for this big meeting to kind of network and talk about artificial intelligence and how they're going to use it in the near future. So it's happening. So hopefully it's being used for
good. And there's software attached to the holographic medical pod. So it's not just the pod itself, the lasers. It has these specialized cameras that monitor you, because what this technology is, it doesn't require a doctor to be on site. The doctor can be off-site and program what it wants the pod to do, what kind of disease it wants it to remove. The patient's DNA is on file in the software that's attached to the pod. Okay. And it takes your healthy self, when you were healthy, before the genetic degradation, before you got the disease, it has your healthy DNA genetics on file on the software of the pod. And it takes those healthy cells and superimposes it on the unhealthy stuff, whatever the disease is, and it eradicates the disease with the laser.
Okay.
That way. There's certain vibrations and energetics. There's certain energy frequencies that are used on the laser to remove the disease or the scarring or to regenerate the limbs. Also, they have the regeneration tanks with the green goo to regrow body parts or to remove even traumatic neurological brain damage that you have, or traumatic experiences. That's something else they do. So this is cutting edge technology, the future of healing, basically. And what are the doctors going to do in big pharma when this hits? What's going to happen to them?
I think
they're not going to have jobs.
Well, there are. I had private conversations about this earlier in the week, and I believe that some of these companies that are, I guess you could call them green companies, they're actually working towards solutions versus this money-making machine to keep people sick. And I have done research, and I believe that these companies, which actually it's very few that are coming out, that are they're working on multiple diseases. So, you know, you have your big Pfizers and all these big companies, big pharma companies that work on multiple, they treat multiple big disease areas in the world. These companies are doing the same thing. They're taking those same diseases and treating them as well, but they're going to be doing a better job, and they're going to be driving out drugs. So there's going to be drugs being just like pushed out of the way. And, you know, these companies, from what I can tell, are fairly on the positive side. So, you know, you're as good as your employees are ultimately. But, yeah, I foresee that the big pharma is going to be changing big this year, next year. And it's going to have to do with nanotechnology and the reprogramming of the human microbiome. So there's a lot coming up that's positive in this big storm that we're kind of riding out, you know.
Well, I have experiences with nanotech because I was abducted by reptilians when I was like 2 to 10.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge year.
Yeah, they infested me with nanites, nanotech, and what ended up happening to me was they screwed up my autoimmune system. The nanites were programmed to stem. So the nanotechnology can be used for healing, or it could be used for the degradation and the destruction of your body as well. So this technology has to be handled very carefully, what it does, because like also there's certain drugs that cure things, right? Big pharma, certain drugs do cure things, but these drugs also have side effects that screw something over. They cure something in your body and they screw you over, like your liver or something else.
Yeah, the commercials with all of
so it's like it could be used for good or bad, the nanotech. Yeah, like drugs have side effects. I mean, there's the Gerson protocol that cures cancer, and it's done with foods and monoatomics and stuff like that. Yep. Or, you know, you could go and get radiation therapy to remove your cancer, but then you're stuck with dead tissue cells in your body that will never regenerate anymore because of
I
radiation.
think
there's no chemo, there's no radiation, there's no drugs.
Right. I think we're at a point in history, you know, everybody wants to see everybody awake and aware, but it's not 100%. So what's happening is you're going to get a small percentage of people that come up with cancer that will actually follow through with their intuition, and they'll do the natural healing, and they'll do the all organic raw foods diet and all that gets rid of the cancer, and that goes along with belief. But then you have the whole other population that's completely brainwashed. Those are the people that are going to need the nanotechnology to help them, because they're not going to do the work that the awake people are going to do. They're just, we come from a lazy culture, and they rely on the pill, they rely on the doctor, and those are the people that they're going to be used for. I think that there's plenty of us, like I would go the raw food diet, I would go no radiation and all that, but you can't convince people that are in that train of thought to change. Change is like the biggest hardest thing for society. So nanotechnology is going to help those
totally
people.
Right, KJ. Right. Yeah, this came up in that roundtable with Penny and Ileana. This whole notion of using nanotech and like 3D printed organs, but they're riddled with nanites and kind of like a cybernetic mesh, and so it's like half synthetic organ, half real organs that they're able to 3D print, but they're augmented with nanotech. And those are going to be for people who, they foster an acidic environment within their body. Their megahertz level falls from like 50% down to like 20, which is like 20 megahertz. That's like the cancer zone. So then they're going to want these miracle cures, and they're going to spend that you said is the culture will like eat whatever they want, drink, smoke, whatever, and then they think to themselves, well, I'm just going to pay 50 grand to just get a replacement heart or a replacement lungs, like so that way I can still be a smoker, and there's really no consequence because I'm just going to take a loan and get a new pair of lungs. But unfortunately, it's going to be so interwoven with nanotech. It's only going to be half organic. It's also going to be half synthetic, and then that's when the AI could basically invade you in a very physical, like actually, it's the transhumanism thing. So they're going to sell the transhumanism to save lives, but like you said, it's going to be for people who are not on the healing path. They're not on the organic ascension timeline. They're actually on the negative timeline, and they're going to become transhumanist cyborgs just to stay alive for an extra 20 years or 30 years. You know what I mean? So,
or there's the holographic medical pod, which does not include nanite. It
I have to walk out for 1 second. My child.
It's super. It's like if you had a healthy liver, it's through your own DNA. So that's not nanotech. That's different. So are we going to go the transhumanism route? Are we going to go the holographic medical bed route, where we're just instantly cured of whatever? What are we doing? Right now, it's big pharma and money and meds and keeping us medicated and dumbed down. The more meds we take, the more dumb we become. That's how it is, really, unfortunately. We're not really lucid. We're walking in a dream when we're on meds.
Yeah. And if the alliance is able to, get rid of the old powers that were, the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers that are behind big pharma. If we're able to get rid of that old paradigm, the new paradigm is going to be like what you said, like when we have medical pods, and it's actually a right. It's a human right to be healed using technology that's actually subsidized by the government. You can walk into any hospital and because if this alliance thing fails and the Rothschilds come back in full force, like after Trump, there's a new president that's totally corrupt once again, then they're going to delay this as much as possible because it is big business. They do not want people to be healthy because they can't really make money off a healthy person.
Yeah, and that's something I'm struggling with as well, because of the nanotech. I have to get creative, and I have to get figure out my health stuff. And I'm not liking what I see in the medical system, but I still rely on it. So it's a two-way street. If you don't do it, you're screwed. If you do it, you're screwed too. So you just have to be careful with medications, how you take it, how much, and what for. Weigh the benefits and the side effects of whatever you're taking. Whatever supplement, whatever medication you're taking, whether alternative or mainstream meds, just read the ingredients, read what you're taking before you take it to understand the concept of it, right? I mean, it's not all healthy. The meds are not all healthy. They're not all good. They're just temporary fix for the problem. It doesn't really fix the problem. It just blinds you to the fact that you have whatever you have temporarily, and then it's back when you're off the meds. Whatever pain you have, it's back.
Right. So I want to ask Anthony a question. So Anthony, in your experience, do you remember the pods, like being a super soldier, like being healed in the pods?
I don't. I remember being like operated on tables. But I don't remember like anything about the pods being used, but I do remember my finger, being healed, and because my finger's broken, and obviously that was after being involved in being used in one of the pods. So That's all I really remember of the pods.
Right.
But I'm sure that I had lots of lots of times that I've been put in them, because I've had many memories where, you know, I've been taken out. So
there's also holographic medical tables from what James Rink has remembered, where he was on the table and there was this scanner that literally peeled off his burned skin and regenerated his skin. And there's an image of that. I have it somewhere. And he's like, whoa, what was this? So there's also the holographic tables. They're more simplistic than the pods, but they can basically peel off your burned skin of your whole body and regraft new skin on your body. So there's also that tech. It's pretty interesting. And it has a scanner with lasers as well, and it's circular and it spins while it regenerates your skin while you're on the table. So that's another tech that they have.
Right. So that's an indication if we get these medical pods in the public sector, and they're able to heal you on a very organic level, like through frequency or like the holographic table, that might be a sign that the Alliance is, actually in control. Because I think if the cabal comes back in full force, we're going to see the transhumanist side of it, where basically, like I said, like you get like a 3D printed organ replacement, and it's actually just full of nanites, and it's, you know what I mean, it's only half organic, it's also half synthetic, and now you're on the road of being a transhumanist cyborg, which it will take you off. Sure, it'll keep you alive for like a few extra years, but will actually take you off the organic ascension timeline. You won't really become a fourth density being. You'll actually remain stuck in third, being kept artificially alive with tech.
Yeah, most people don't even.
That.
Most people don't even realize they could be fourth density beings, in that if they switch up to the cybernetics, the transhumanism route, it's like a boob job. As an example, if you do a boob job, you have to replace that silicone or that saline every 10 to 20 years and get it upgraded to something else, because your natural collagen, your natural boob fat is gone. It has been replaced with the silicone or the saline. It can rupture, it can leak, it can do this and that. Same thing with the new heart. Half synthetic, half organic. The synthetics can fail, the organics can fail. The 3D printing heart, that could fail, and you need another heart reprinted for you and reinsert it into your body. So they have to open you up and put it in. Or somehow they do have the tech to actually grow it inside you. There's tech that can grow it inside you, and they don't have to open you up. There's degrees of old tech and new tech for this stuff too. Same with the holographic medical pods. There's more advanced ones and there's older ones. And different groups get different stuff based on what hardware they should have for it. So Kevin is totally right. It all depended on the route we choose. Do we want the organic, or do we take the transhumanism and have to have it replaced every 20 years? A new heart has to be printed for you because the nanotech is failing it.
Okay, Jay, your mic is muted.
Yeah, how do we signal that to her? Oh, wait.
Yeah.
No, I think that that choice of going the more frequency natural towards the frequencies, maybe sound actually would be involved. I don't know. I know that's a big thing in this lifetime is sound. But if you go that way, if you choose that way versus the non-natural, the transhumanist way, I think that gets to that point where you are spiritually, individually, and what you know and what you know in your heart and what you've researched or what you've just ignored. I think there's a lot of lazy people.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
The nano way, and just they'll make the investment, and once they make the investment,
there's the lazy people that are going to want the
easy route, the easy way. They don't want to face that path to actually heal the multidimensional self, to heal the past, to heal the present. There's actually a puzzle that we're supposed to solve. And if you choose not to solve that, you're going to go that way. And that's the line between knowing yourself versus not knowing yourself. Because that's the rule. Know thyself. And once you know thyself, that's what they're afraid of. That's what they don't want us to do. Because then we become an internal cannon towards all this stuff. It's all know thyself. Mm-hmm. Honestly, all this is built around the fear of us knowing who we are and how we can incorporate that to basically stop the big plan, the NWO and all that.
Most people can't even handle who they are, though. Most people can't even handle who they are, because I know that, you know, in the Oracle of Delphi's temple, on the way in, it said know thyself, and that's like the ultimate test, and most people can't handle even who they are. So, but if you can, that's like the ultimate power, but it also can be the ultimate destruction. And if you take that path to know yourself, which is obviously like an oracular path, you'll either, like you said, ascend or descend.
Right.
And there's like,
and that's yeah.
There's so many autoimmune, from what I've learned personally, I have autoimmune disease. There's so many of them. It's based on a cellular level, and there's no real treatment for it. But the thing is, they do offer you the treatment if, like, you know, a plasma, like a cleanse, a blood cleanse, like plasma flush. They clean your plasma and give it back to you, and immunoglobulin blood cleaning. They clean your blood and give you new immunoglobulins. You have to be careful that you don't get anything else with it. It's risky, but yet it could be of benefit to people who have autoimmune diseases. But you have to know what testing to do for it specifically. If you don't know the test, you cannot get it. You can't get that treatment unless you can prove what you have in your body, what's physiologically there in the body. So you have to be smart in what you ask for and how to approach the doctor for it. That's something I've learned on myself. I'm going to get genetic testing to see what's going on with me in autoimmunity and how I could go about, you know, getting that blood cleanse that I want.
I have a question for you about that. So when you go and get your genetic test, like I've looked for people that do private analyzations of blood and stuff like that, and it's very hard to find. Like, how do you find an unbiased reading of your DNA and of your makeup, being who you are, being in the secret space program? How do you know, unless you know who you're talking to is going to do an accurate readout for you? That's my question. Like, because I would love to find some private, non-biased people that would do some research. Because if anybody knows anybody, let me know, because I'm looking for that. And I think that it's valuable, because especially people like us, we could be getting phony readings all the time, you know. So
what I'm doing is doing specific genetic testing for autoimmunity issues, and I've put, like, on a cue card specifically what I want tested for, and this is done through the public medical system. But I'm very specific. This is what I need to be tested for, because this is the symptoms that I have, and this is what I want to treat. So for me, it's pretty simple, because I already suspect I know what I have based on the reptilian crap that's happened to me. Private genetic testing, there is a company in the US. It's $25,000. It's pretty expensive, but they do the blood work. They do a full workup, physical, mental. It's $25,000. If you want to know what's truly going on with you, it's costly.
Yeah.
So I don't really, you have to find reputable people. It's really about reputation. Yeah. And the more expensive it is, the more honest it is in what's really going on with you genetically. So it's you have to be specific. Like, if you're aware of genetic anomalies and you know what's going on with you, that's what you should be getting tested specifically for. At least that's what's going to be going on with me and what I'm requesting. And this is through public health. This is just going in and doing a spinal tap test.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. This is what I want to isolate genetically. This is what I want to see in results.
That's smart.
It's just lab results.
Well, that's
And
a
I'll pay
smart
for
way
it
to
myself because I want very specialized
Right.
testing.
Right. 'Cause
Yeah,
if you
that's
don't know
I need to go that
yourself-
route because I have weird symptoms.
Yeah, if you
What
don't
can
know
you do with
yourself-
yourself?
Right. If you don't know yourself, like know what you're doing, making that list, you go into the doctors and you are subject to their theories and what they perceive, which could be anything or nothing, you know?
Well, yeah. I've been subject to a shrink who said it's all in my head. So I've gone, I've seen the shrink, but to get one thing, you need to do another thing. So I've gone the therapy route. I've gone the doctor route, and I'm now going my own route. Like, I'll pay for the testing. It's going to be done in a hospital, just normal hospital by a normal neurologist who I go to. I'll pay for it. I'm willing. I just want to say, look, this is what I have. I just want a blood cleanse. Just give me a blood cleanse, please. I'll have to pay for that too, which is fine. But it's the treatment that I need, not the treatment that somebody else is giving me based on theories.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, I'm tired of the theories, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I want the treatment that I want on my own terms, not somebody else's medical guess of what's going on with me. So physical proof for physical evidence, I guess. That's the only way to get a proper treatment in the medical system.
I agree. Totally. Absolutely.
If you go that route, if you know how to do it totally organically without the medical system, I'm all for that. But I've cleansed myself in this supplemental ways that I know.
Yeah, are we?
How? But it's not. It's still, for me, I still need the medical system for a blood cleanse.
Totally understand.